Hey everyone. So this video doesn't really have much of a specific subject, but I don't think it really needs one. So I was in Cetus a few days ago. I forgot exactly what for, but eventually I just started walking around because I was just bored. So I was bored, and basically the only thing to really do there is look at people's fashion frame, unless I wanted to go do a mission, which I didn't want to do at the time. I ended up walking around and see this in my dojo for a really long time. Anyway, I was just sort of walking around, and I sort of noticed this person that you see in all the clips, and I don't know exactly why I noticed them. I think the name looks familiar. I just can't really pin down exactly how. Exactly where I've seen it before, if at all. Uh, a little earlier, I think, the day before that, I actually found one of my old friends in Cetus, so maybe that's part of a factor of it. I don't know exactly, but regardless, I noticed that one person, and it sort of got me thinking, how often do other people notice me like that? Uh, it's a weird that I have all the time. I remember when I got my Celestia signed Donna, I thought a lot of people would comment on it because it's so rare to see, and because it's so rare to see someone who you can tell is an active conclave player. I remember there were one or two times when I found someone with a Celestia signed Donna that I didn't already know, and it caused some good conversation to come from it, both of those times. And the fact that there were only two times is what is really notable about that, because you know how much I played. Granted, I play Saul a lot, but I think I've shown my hours before. I've played quite a bit, so um and I just specify that I mean lit Celestia signed down. It's not ones that don't have their flares on, because that really shows that you haven't played recently. So anyway, yeah, so um basically when I got on mine, I really thought that more people would notice it, but that almost never happened. At least not in a way where they would say it or anything, or I know that they would notice. And it was sort of, I guess, disappointing in a way, because I have something special and almost nobody cares. And even more often than that happening was people just being mean about it. So that's the more disappointing part about it. Not the fact that people didn't really notice, because I'm definitely okay with that. As you can see, I still wear it after these years, because it's not the reason why I wear it, but um the really more disappointing part about it is that there are more people who uh who think badly of it than people who uh think good of it. And it's just one of those cases where I very often wonder if I'm wrong about something. Uh because so many people are so against Conclave. And I know that's not a good reason to also go against Conclave. I know that's a huge fallacy. It could be proven uh wrong in many ways. But at the same time, it is I guess cause for wonder, because uh just using purely your own judgment for everything is a really is also what can lead to stuff that's really fallacious. So that's also something that I avoid doing. So what I said in my previous video, really, but I guess in a more broad sense, rather than just Warframe stuff, just things in general. So many people believe something, and you have to, and it's you don't necessarily have to agree, but you really have to wonder and try to understand why. And sometimes it is the case that you're wrong, which is what really is what makes it so worth considering, I guess. Like I said, there's not really a particular subject for this video, but I think like what I really want like the point to be is like for people to like, I don't know, either like have like something to like gain from it, or maybe tell me a thing or two, like, because these are a bunch of incomplete thoughts, but like I think that is sometimes enough for some people to like really get something from. Because I think everyone like has those moments where like someone will like say something that gets them thinking a certain way, and then that leads to something a lot more notable. That's sort of what I'm hoping with this video, and if that's not the case, maybe you can tell me about one of the things I mentioned. Maybe I'm the one that's trying to learn here. Um, yeah, I guess like in a way it's almost like venting, but venting isn't something that I really do much. Like it's not something that I find particularly helpful. Like I guess that's another thing worth talking about because like the thing with venting is like you're just like telling people about things that I guess bother you, and like for the most part like it doesn't really like solve the problem. Um, so like I've never really like understood why it works for some people, but like I guess like I've understood that it works for some people, but it just doesn't do anything for me really. I guess I do find it interesting though. Like actually, what I've recently found is something about bullying, which is sort of related to this. So like they did a test on rats where like basically what happened was they found a way to induce depression on rats, which is giving them like varying forms of stress over periods of time. So like basically it have to be varying forms so that they don't just like get used to it. And like it wasn't even like anything like extreme, but it was stuff like tilting their cage a little bit and stuff. If I can find a link to that study, I'll put it in the description, but I'm not sure if I will be able to find it. So like yeah, they found a way to induce depression in rats. And one of the interesting things that they found, like from their experiments that they used that with, was that there were rats that would basically bully other rats. So like these like depressed rats would bully other rats, and then of course the bullied rats, they would have like their own negative effects, and then the depressed rats would actually act a lot more normally. So it's like they passed on their pain to another rat, and it's it's something that's supposedly really insightful for like just like human bullying, and you can probably see why that is. I think that can also show a lot about emotional reasoning. Emotional reasoning is something that like where like a few years ago, like I realized like how flawed it can be. Not to say that's necessarily like always flawed and stuff, but like it very often can be flawed. I would say more often than not even. And so like I was on Discord. Again, it was a server I mentioned before, Max the Rat server. I guess I'll link Max the Rat's channel because I do recommend checking it out. And then you could probably look in any of his descriptions for his Discord server. Anyway, um, so I was talking on that server, and we were sort of like talking about like I guess like emotional expression in general. And like there are like sort of like two sides, like two different sorts of people in that server in that regard. where it's like there are people who like they try to be about as expressive as possible, and then people who try to be about as like unexpressive as possible. Not really like to like those extremes, but like I would say about as human, like about as like humanly close as possible, if that makes any sense. So like we don't have like total uh like AI people, but then we also don't have like people who like do everything emotionally based. Anyway, yeah, those are like basically like the two sides. I'd say I'm more so on the side of like just like not being expressive, if you can probably tell. Where like where like I do try to be like a lot more logical about things. But as I said, I can't really judge like the quality of my own logic, as I don't think anybody really can to a certain degree. But I could talk about quantity, I guess. And that really leads me to what I consider to be like one of the biggest logical conflicts that like I could think. I'd say it's like the biggest logical conflict I could think of, which is having reason for a reason. And I know it sounds ridiculous uh because like obviously reason works well. Like it's sort of like what I think Richard Dawkins once said about science. Like we use science because it works. When we use science to make planes, they fly. When we use science to make cars, they drive, and so on. And so when we use reason to decide on things, they work out. Science basically is like a particular form of reasoning. Like it's like people often don't understand that science is just like a way of finding information. They think that's like just a certain category of subjects to study. Anyway, and so like it's not sounds ridiculous, but like uh, there's often like this conflict of where it should and shouldn't be used. And like as far as I can tell, reason should always be used, but like maybe there are exceptions. For example, what I said about like emotions. You know, does there need to be particular reason to express emotions, or like maybe there is reason, but like that's difficult to figure out. It's often weird. Like that's not the best example because I think you could probably answer that with like simply like just like the entire basis of morality being that it's for maximizing pleasure and minimizing suffering. So like I sort of get that, although you could at that point argue uh, just the reason behind morality in general, because there has to be a point where there's sort of like a default where you start using reasoning from, and that default can't really be with reason. So like I was actually gonna add something about morality to this, like a thing from Matt Dillhunter that I want to talk about. But I think that could actually be its own video, so look out for that if you're interested. Because I think morality is like one of like the biggest like ongoing debates, like whether it's objective or not and stuff like that. But yeah, this was basically like a random sort of thought that I very often have, and just delving, I guess, deeper into my more frequent thoughts, things that I think about every day, multiple times per day even. So, I hope this was enjoyable in some way. See ya.